yesterday throughout the day, Collar, and I know your mentions are probably more flooded than mine since we're talking about Vikings football here. One of the things that I kept on getting from Vikings fans who had heard this rumor was, how would they make this work salary cap wise? They're so strapped for cash. How could they possibly make this work? And this never occurred to me. I'm willing to admit that. It makes perfect sense. We've heard that the Browns are interested in Anthony Harris, and the two sides have discussed a trade for Anthony Harris before the Odell Beckham Jr. thing popped up. It would make sense to me, and Chad Graff brought this up in his column this morning, and the money makes sense as well, that in some combination, Anthony Harris for Odell Beckham Jr. could indeed work when you're talking about the salary cap and money implications.
Yeah, it could, because you get $11 million off the cap by trading Anthony Harris, and Odell Beckham costs about $14 million. Now, with Cleveland, the funny part about this is if they trade Odell Beckham, they take on a big dead cap hit for the first year, but the second year they don't, and then going forward they don't. So maybe they wouldn't mind taking that hit, especially since their quarterback is still on a rookie contract. That's the only way it could work. Or if you traded for him and then on draft night you trade Anthony Harris or something like that for, I don't know, say a third or fourth round pick, but you're kind of forced to do it. There's also the Riley Reif option. But at this moment, I don't know if you want to trade Reif. Maybe you say, okay, there's a great tackle that we didn't expect to be there at 22. We're going to take him. We're going to trade Riley Reif, and we can fit Odell Beckham. The one thing that is beneficial about an Odell Beckham deal for the Vikings, aside from his potential to be one of the better receivers in the NFL, is that his contract is structured so you could get rid of him after this year. Now, the problem with that is he's probably going to want a restructured contract or a contract extension, or just his contract completely thrown out and redone.
Did he not get anyone when he went to Cleveland?
He signed a contract when he was in New York, and that carried over to when he was in Cleveland. But at least from that perspective, it looks good. Like, you essentially have him on a 1-year deal. But if he gets here and says, sorry, I'm not playing on that contract because I'm very aware that I am essentially on a 1-year deal, well, then you've got yourself a problem. And that goes into the many hurdles that would be involved in trying to get Odell Beckham, not just what you said about potentially trading Anthony Harris, but also, beyond the salary cap, do you want to spend that much on your top two wide receivers? Because now you're talking about like $30 million to just two wide receivers, as opposed to drafting one and paying the guy, I don't know what it is, $2 million or something, whatever the draft slot would be at 22 or 25. I mean, that's part of it. His injuries, his off the field stuff. And there are a lot of things that you would have to kind of ignore to make this work, but it is a team that is in desperation mode to try and win and to stack more talent. So it wouldn't be the least Vikings-y thing I ever heard if they win.
Yeah, while on the one hand, this would be contradictory to something that they've done this offseason, which has been a trend in this offseason, is being contradictory. But they just got rid of Stephon Diggs because he seemed to be a headache. He seemed to not be happy here. He seemed to not be happy with his role in the offense and not being spotlighted or showcased or used as effectively as he could be. That seemed to be at the root of Stephon Diggs' unhappiness. And I can't imagine that if Stephon Diggs isn't happy with his role and doesn't think he's being used as effective as possible here in Minnesota, that that Odell Beckham Jr. would be happy coming in and filling that void and in what would be, compared to what he's done before, a limited role for Odell Beckham Jr. So that part of it is contradictory, but it does make sense in the sense that it would be a win now move, which is re-signing Kirk Cousins, extending him 2 more years, which is Mike Zimmer and Rick Spielman still having jobs. Like, these things indicate they're still trying to win now and not building towards the future.
Right.
The Odell Beckham Jr. trade makes sense in that sense, does it not?
Yeah, no, it does, in terms of you are still trying to win right now. If you go 5-11 or 6-10, you're talking about a new head coach and a new general manager. The amount of pressure on these two, considering that they don't have contract extensions as far as we know, is immense. I mean, the win against New Orleans helped, and you might look at it as this is kind of the proving ground this offseason for both of these guys and going into next season for both of these guys, because Rick Spielman has a very important draft. Now, I know and you know how random the draft can be, but ownership, I think, puts a lot of value on how well you draft overall. And if you botch this draft entirely and you come out of it without any starters for next year and your rookies don't make any sort of big impact, that's not going to be a good look. And that's probably what happens if you lose a bunch of games. If Mike Zimmer can't coach them up, and you end up going 7-9, 6-10, then yeah, I think that they know and we all know that we could end up with big changes there. So from that standpoint, it makes sense to get proven players if you can. And, nobody's going to make much more impact on an offense than a great wide receiver. But your point that you said about, the offense being built around Dalvin Cook is 100% true. And that's one of the reasons that I'm not really in favor of this. Aside from his personality, his injuries, he hasn't been the same receiver really since 2016. When you have to reach back that far to find a guy being an elite player, usually in the NFL, that time is past for that person. But if you're going to build it around one wide receiver and a running back, and then try to spread it out to all the other weapons, bring in someone like Odell Beckham and giving him, 85 targets or something, that just doesn't seem like that's a recipe for huge success.
Don't you think when we talk about the drop-off in production with Odell Beckham Jr., and look, age is undefeated, and guys tend to decline the older that they get in this league, but he was in a completely dysfunctional situation last year between the quarterback situation and the head coach, and before that, for the last couple of years in New York, he was with a kind of washed Eli Manning. I think that contributes to the drop-off in numbers and production for Odell Beckham Jr., wouldn't you think?
I think so, yes, but he's also he played through an injury last year, and then he had an injury 2 years ago, and that concerns me. And I also think with the amount that this guy has sort of been the center of attention, and I might be wrong on this, but I think that some people age faster than others in the NFL. So Anthony Harris, for example, was a practice squad player, then a backup. So he's 27 years old now, and I think it's a pretty young 27, and I think he could easily play at a high level through 33 to 35. It wouldn't surprise me at all. But with Odell Beckham, with the number of injury, he came into the league with an injury, by the way, and missed the first couple of games. I think it was a hamstring or something like that. And then he had a couple of elite seasons, and it's been quite a long time since he's done that again. He's kind of an older 27. In the example that I would use of a guy who's like an old 27 would be, well, two players come to mind. One is Sean Merriman. Remember him? Remember how dominant he was for a couple years, and then it just fell off the side of a cliff. And people kept acquiring Sean Merriman and like, oh no, remember what a beast he was for his first few years? And it just never came back. And that was the accumulation of injuries for him. And Michael Floyd. Michael Floyd had some off the field issues himself and had gone through a lot by the time he was 27, 28 years old. And when he got to the Vikings, I think he was only 27 or 28, and yet it seemed like he was 34. And that's just the toll that stress can take on you and injuries can take on you and so forth. And people drop off fast. You go through the receiver history, there are a lot of guys who had 3-4 great seasons where they were one of the best in the NFL and then never did it again.
Now, when we talk about immediate impact and making a trade to get immediate impact ahead of or during the draft, what do you think does that more? Let's say both of these guys come at approximately the same cost, Odell Beckham Jr. or Trent Williams. I told Judd in the first hour, give me Odell Beckham Jr. if I'm in win now mode, because to me, your chances of getting somebody who can give you close to the performance of Odell Beckham Jr. with one of those first round picks is greater than, is less than what you would get from an offensive tackle. Does that make any sense? I think you would get more immediate impact from an offensive tackle you took in the first round versus a wide receiver you took in the first round, I guess is an easier way for me to say what I'm trying to say in a very convoluted way.
Yeah, so it depends on which version of Odell Beckham you're talking about. I mean, if it is the 2016 version of Odell Beckham, that's one of the best players in the NFL, one of the most valuable players in the NFL. And I would take that over a 33-year-old Trent Williams. But the version that I think you're getting of Odell Beckham, I would take Trent Williams instead. Even though he's older and has had some injuries along the way, we've seen older tackles throughout really NFL history stay on and play really, really well for a long time into their late 30s, including two guys that were in the league last year, Jason Peters and Andrew Whitworth, were both top-notch tackles, even though they were 37, 38 years old. And with Trent Williams' freakish athleticism, I think he can do that. So he could be a long-term solution for you. Beckham, that one's much harder. And both of them are going to require money too, I think. Both of them are going to require new contracts probably. And that makes it even harder for both of them. But Williams is, in my mind, much less of a risk off the field, locker room risk, distraction risk, all those types of things than Odell Beckham is. And those things, you can overlook them to some extent when someone has 100 catches and is making Eli Manning look like it's 10 years ago Eli Manning. But last year, when Baker Mayfield was targeting Odell Beckham, he had a 70 quarterback rating.
That's not good.
4 touchdowns, 7 picks. That's not good at all.
That's not good.
And the quarterback rating each year has declined when targeting Odell Beckham. Every single year, it's gone down from his rookie season. That is concerning to me more than even Trent Williams, who I think actually taking a year off of football might help extend his career for some time.
Yeah, all the mileage and wear and tear that he would have taken last year, he got a chance to rest and recover. And he was going through some pretty serious health concerns to begin with, so he maybe could have used that year away from the game. Before we break, and then we'll talk with Andrew Brandt on the other side. He's going to dumb down NFL finances for us. Did you guys see the internet getting upset with Jay Glazer last night? Did you guys catch this?
Internet is routinely upset. I saw that.
Should we let's decide as an officiating crew here. Are we throwing a flag on Jay Glazer?
Yes.
100%.
You are?
Yes.
Yep.
Unsportsmanlike conduct.
He tried to warn people. He tweeted out, "The news I have tonight is not transactional news, not a player getting traded." Big national news, though, he teased on his show that was on at 11 o'clock Eastern, 10 o'clock Central, on Fox, or on Fox Sports 1, I believe it was. And then the news he announced on Fox Football Now, his radio show, so that's where it was. It's a radio show. He announced that Ram center Brian Allen was the first NFL player to test positive for coronavirus. Is that not tease-worthy news for Jay Glazer? Did he mislead us in his tease and telling people to tune into his radio show later that night for big breaking news?
If this was a Rams reporter, then you might be like, okay, it's cool. But this is Jay Glazer. I mean, he's broken some of the biggest stories that have happened over the last 15 years.
So you're saying he set the bar too high for him to sink to these levels.
When Jay Glazer says, you got to tune in because this is big, you're like, ooh, wow, okay, I'm ready for something that only Jay Glazer has. What's going to happen here?
So pissed.
Right? I mean, that you get amped because you think Jay Glazer has connections and relationships with players that a lot of reporters do not have. And so he is like the insidery of the insider. So if he's got something big, all right, let's go. A Rams player I've never heard of has coronavirus? Like, really? Like, a lot of people have coronavirus. What? That's it? Is the guy dead? No, he's not. He's fine. Like, what? Now, I will say, if a player, but if a player died of coronavirus, that would be probably a huge story.
Yeah, that'd be big.
But also, why are you hanging on to this for a day? Like, why don't you just say it?
Yeah, that's true. Okay, I didn't quite get the anger, but when you put it like that, it makes a little bit more sense. By the way, did you see that in retaliation to him letting us all down, people just started making fake Jay Glazer accounts and reporting ridiculous things
yes.
to get back at him? I saw one that said that President Trump had declared that no fans would be allowed at sporting events until 2022. And I almost, for a second, because I hadn't seen the furor over Jay Glazer and the entire internet being pissed off at him, I almost fell for it and hit the retweet, and then I clicked on the handle and saw that it was.
You got to check every time. It's a dangerous world out there.
Oh, I've gotten got. I've gotten got on Twitter. I've gotten got with saying things on the air that were from fake accounts. So it's happened to